Whoop, whoop. Yay! Check it out. Yes, it is Thursday. It is 9. So it's UK Cowboys time. How we doing? Everybody.
Pretty good, man. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, night roasting here, but never mind.
I know I'm sweating like nobody's business over here in Scotland. I never thought I would actually say that in a wee while.
Yeah. Well, we do have as well with us a very special guest from a rather warm part of the globe at the moment over in Texas. We got Mr. RJ Cho. How we doing, sir?
It's great to be with you guys. Not 9 o'clock here. It's 3 o'clock. The sun is out and it's very hot, and I miss the fall a lot. So,
what temperature are you up to at the moment over there?
well, I know we're cavemen who operate in Fahrenheit,
Of course,
but
yeah.
it is. I can't do the conversion for you. I'm not that talented, but it is 95 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment.
Yeah.
So it's like the low 30s, really, for us, really.
Yeah. Like 33, 34.
34.
35.
Yeah. I think by when
35.
we're close enough.
Yeah. See, we tried to act intelligent, but we're just guessing as well, RJ, to be honest with you.
Right on.
Yeah, it's like quick, like mute the microphone, Siri. Quick, give me this one, and then, but not really. But yes, we guys continuing on the positional breakdown series. We've only got 4, which is included in this episode. 4 more episodes of season 3, and that's it. All done, dusted, and we're on to bigger and brighter things on season 4. Although I have noticed a trend. I went back and checked. Season 1, we did 62 episodes. Season 2 was 68 episodes. This one will end up being on like 70, I think 75, 76. So it's a steady trajectory of a continual amount of shows coming in. But yes, talking this week about the pass rushers on the Cowboys roster, defensive ends, but we'll obviously go with the news first. But before we go there, as I always do every show, I'm going to ask you guys, what do you feel this year about the pass rusher position? Obviously, we've lost Randy Gregory. We picked up a couple of guys during the draft, to include the UDFA as well. How do you feel this year in general, folks, about the pass rusher position in comparison to last year?
Question mark. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
I think if anything, we're treading water at the moment. We don't know what we've got, but I mean, Fowler technically is probably about the. You should probably get the same out of Fowler and Doris Armstrong that you probably got out of Randy Gregory and Doris Armstrong last year. So I think we're probably standing pat at the moment. See how we go with guys like Williams, etc.
Yeah. All right. But RJ's like, you have to quickly skip on. I just asked the guys a quick question about how you feel about the pass rusher position for the Cowboys this year, losing Randy but picking up 2 guys in the rookie plus Dante. How you feel about the group this year in comparison to last year?
I am a little bit down on it. I had to leave because there's a truck outside, so the dog is barking. But I mean, it's worse, and I hate to say that. It's like, I think we're reaching a point where we have to face some hard truths. That's not to say that it can't, still be good. It's not to say that Sam Williams can't have a great rookie year, or that Donny Fowler can't find the fountain of youth. I think it would be irresponsible to believe that Donny Fowler and Sam Williams are going to come in, that Doris Armstrong is going to take this leap when that hasn't happened yet. I mean, what if DeMarcus Lawrence gets hurt again too? I mean, like that's lurking around the corner as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the changes as well and everything. I was speaking to a few guys over in Dallas Cowboys media. As I always do, I badger them with a host of questions. One day they're going to block me. I'm telling you, it's coming. They've got to. Otherwise, it's just not going to stop otherwise. But I tell you what, we'll get onto that in a second. So let's hit the news and updates, and then we'll crack on with the show. Is it, guys?
Cool.
Rock and roll. All right, well, the news and update segment this week is pretty short. We're in the complete and utter low point of the NFL season year, where it's between OTA and going to camp, so it's pretty quiet. But we didn't touch on it last week because obviously the way that the dates were rolling. But OTAs last week, and I'll get what all of you think on this. Day 2, day 3 cancelled. They obviously used day 2 for team building. Which is what they did, and they went to Top Golf, spent the day golfing. Day 3 was a day off. What do you guys, and as well, RJ as well, make of this? One thing I was going to add before I ask you guys is something that people didn't think about, which I was just thinking about now when we asked RJ about how hot it is over there. Bear in mind, they're trying to run OTAs last week in like 104, 105 degree Fahrenheit weather. So that has to be something taken into account. But what do you guys all make of cancelling 2 days of OTAs?
I mean, I'm kind of open to the idea to a certain extent. Like I'm all up for team building because these guys are coming in. They don't know who they're working with, so even just like get to know their teammates outside of football that actually help them gain a better communication, just to get to know each other better. But at the same time, I'm kind of like on the fence on that as well. It's like I kind of still like to know them to kind of like get as many reps in, for like because they're going to be installing with all this playbook information, get to know the coaches better, learn like all the wee ins and outs before they actually go into actual training camps. So in a way, I'm kind of like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think. I mean, one of the things, obviously, the Thursday, the rookies were still in the building, and the rookies were still sitting down with the coaches. They weren't actually training, but they were still sitting down with their coordinators, their position coaches, and going through things. So I think the veterans, you can afford to give them the time off, especially a lot of them are sort of obviously picking up niggles in the OTAs. You got a couple of guys that are obviously rehabbing a lot of injuries. But coming on, I mean, obviously Gallup's, there was a report this week that Gallup is still targeting middle of September, not October for
That's right,
a return. So, that's looking hopeful. It's not like you're bringing in a completely new system this year, so certainly the veterans should have last year's system down pat. And then it's only a few wrinkles that you're maybe installing again. And then obviously you build up again and you build it up again at the beginning of training camp as well. So, but as Paul says, I mean, team chemistry, what you build up off the field translates to on the field as well. So
yeah, I'm going to agree with the last two guys because it's the middle of June. Nothing's won in June, and if you can let the guys bond a little bit, like we said, it's most of the same coaching staff coming back, same quarterback, same offensive coordinator, same D coordinator. So not overly concerned. It would have been nice, but I'm sure they've gained a few brownie points with the players not sending them out in 100-degree weather.
What do you make of it, RJ?
I think it's funny that, the Cowboys were so lax and that, that's the same team that's been fined 2 years in a row for being too physical. So these are kind of like diametrically opposing ideas. But I know some people, I mean, I haven't seen much of it, but I know that the takes are out there. People are mad at the truck again. I swear he was so quiet for like an hour before, and then the moment I hop on here is when the chaos unfolds. But I just don't have the energy to be upset that they're not utilizing the practices. Like I mean the whatever difference it would make is not even real to the point of having any sort of legitimate emotion. I think it's just fine. I think if you're a good head coach, I think you trust your team, you trust your guys, you trust your players, and you know what's best for them. So if it's Topgolf, hey, so be it.
Yeah, and it is install phase really when you think about it, and trying to get these guys up to a level of fitness if they're there already. Coaches know better than us about where they are in their condition level.
Just add on top of that, Mike, it's up to the player's responsibility to do their due diligence, to learn the play, but to do these things themselves in their own time as well if they want to make an impact in the team.
Yeah.
So it's much, even though it's a bit relaxed, but it's up to the players to step up and actually take the initiative going forward.
Yeah, totally with you. All right, further news in terms of practices, they've had some extra officials to turn up. The emphasis here is to get them reducing their flag rate, so to become more disciplined.
I was wondering where this was going, because I genuinely thought, it's like, did they just bring in more officials in just to make sure that we're not making any holding calls?
Yeah, basically, the plan for it there is just to get more discipline on the team, so they're seeing exactly what they want to see. There's also some talk about Simi versus TJ Vasher, so keep an eye on that battle as we tell you each week which battles to look out for. That's our one to watch for this week, or when it gets to Oxnard. And then the last one is there's some Kelvin Joseph news as well. He has been questioned, but 2 arrests have been made. He isn't one of them. So that is something to continue to look out for. But let's do it then, guys. We are into the past Russia territory for the Cowboys. Obviously, we've got to start from the very top. And I was speaking to David Hellman this week about DeMarcus Lawrence and trimming down. We was talking about it last week, Paul, about how he's got a little streamline. I'm trying to think of reasons, like, is it they're trying to get old DeMarcus Lawrence back, like versus that game versus the Lions, where he's getting the strip sack against Matt Stafford, or are there other reasons behind it? Dave Hellman completely, and I never really thought of it until I was speaking to him, but basically, and RJ attested to it a little earlier, is that he's picking up a lot of injuries. So why not try and help that by reducing his weight?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, yeah, I didn't think of that. Now you spell it out for me. It does make sense.
Yeah, especially, I mean, the 2 major ones he's had, both as a rookie and last year, the broken foot as well. I mean, that's obviously, if he's carrying a bit of extra weight, that puts a lot of stress on your ankles and your metatarsals, etc. So, anything you can do to reduce the stress there. Obviously, he's now had plates. I think he's had plates installed as well, so that's supposed to give a little bit extra strength as well. So that should help as well. But I mean, this year I think the last couple of years there's been problems with DeMarcus Lawrence. He's been on and off the field a few times with little injuries as well. Not quite Sean Lee-esque injuries, but it's still concerning that we've missed out on him for short spells, if nothing else.
Yeah. What do you make, RJ? What are you thinking? This is a good move to get DeMarcus trimmed down a bit, especially when you think how he holds up against the run, absorbing all that energy?
First of all, the truck is gone, so there's peace in my house once again. You would think that the dog would understand there's a 7-month-old child here. A little sensitivity would go a long way. By the way, while you talk about that, happy first Father's Day for you. Thank you, Paul. Or, not Paul. Thank you, Mike. Paul's always on my mind.
You're okay. You're okay. We look similar.
Well, you're a little bit more handsome, Mike. Let's be fair. Sorry,
at least I admit I'm ugly, so at least I admit
but
not on the inside.
I like the idea. I mean, I think that's how you have to treat older players. I mean, this is year number 9 for DeMarcus Lawrence, and so like in a vacuum, I like that idea. But then it becomes a matter of, okay, well, what do you do if you're lessening DeMarcus Lawrence's workload? It would have been nice to have Randy Gregory. It would have been nice to have Zadarius Smith. It would have been nice to have Yvonne Miller. I mean, obviously some of those players are long in the tooth as well, but I just you can't have all of these things. Like this is a Venn diagram with no middle where all of these meet. And so that's tough. I think the approach for DeMarcus Lawrence is right, and I'm excited about that. But it leaves it just requires Micah Parsons to be even more amazing, which is very possible, but is reckless to assume.
Yeah. I mean, like, if we go through as well, and I've written it all down. I'm just trying to gas my way through getting it back up on my phone. So obviously, 30 years of age. He was one of the veterans on the Cowboys roster. As you say, 9 years experience with the Cowboys from Boise State, taken in the second round. But here's what is interesting is he's like the third highest paid on the roster. His cap hit, because he did take the extension, is 14 on the cap this year, which you can kind of live with, especially when you think he was the highest graded run defender last year amongst defensive ends, which says it all about what he can do. But here's the bit that scares me, and tell me how this is going to work, RJ, is that next year his cap hit, tied in as well with Dak Prescott's, is 26 mil on the cap.
I mean, that's we've been saying it forever. The TV money's coming, right? Like the cap's about to explode. Yeah. I mean, that's what I think the hope is that next year, it obviously got a little delayed and wonky with the pandemic, as it's been talked about many times. But I think that's the hope, or that's the plan, is that, the cap grows exponentially back on pace prior to 2020 a year from now. And so you're not dealing with this massive casualty or massive situation that DeMarcus Lawrence presents.
Yeah, and it's one of the things I was talking about with the guys last week about why a lot of people are saying, why aren't they using this cap money? And for me, I think they're rolling it over because you've got Dak's contract come in, you've got Tony Pollard, you think all the other players, CeeDee Lamb, although they're going to use the 5th-year option, but you've got to think projecting forward about all these other players that are coming for contracts, and then add in then this 26 mil that he's hitting next year. But do you think over the 2 years, that's 40 mil on the cap, is DeMarcus Lawrence worth that?
I mean, if it's relative to the cap, yeah. I mean, he's worth being paid, like a premium edge rusher. But it's fair to wonder, I mean, to the point that, Lauren Paul and Grandma mentioned, I mean, is the bottom falling out? Like, did the bottom fall out last year? Did we see the beginning of that? Like, did they just, buy a little bit too late here? And that's, that's the way this goes. I mean, one day you're still at your peak and the next day you're not. And that, that's a hard reality when it sets in. And, I mean, again, you're talking next year, he's entering double-digit seasons in the NFL. That's, that's a long ways away from peak productivity. And coming off, I mean, the injury last year was a little bit of a freak thing, but it's fair to wonder. It's fair to speculate. He's not something that I think you can feel great about for the next 2 years, but he's obviously a factor now.
Yeah, and I mean, because the thing everyone lies on is the run defending. But, you mentioned the freak injury. But, yeah, I mean, when you go through his totals, I mean, we lost him for a considerable chunk too. Plays week 1, we lose him. And then he's not back until week 13, but not really doing anything really considerable for the team until week 14. Week 15 being his best game of the season. Because the issue people always have is you're paying all this money, and take, for instance, last year, given everything that happened, it's 3 sacks and 30 pressures, which is a rotational player,
Yeah, I mean, and last year was a weird year, and I think that people people harp on Randy Gregory's sack numbers, and I mean, y'all know how annoying that can be, but it's a big year for DeMarcus Lawrence. I mean, it's a big reputational year. He had all the comments when OTA started about wanting to kind of reclaim the sack title on the team. Like, that's he's no longer the. I don't know that I'd be curious what you guys think. Like, when you think of the Cowboys defense, I don't think he's in the first 2 players you think of. I mean, it's a revolution. Yeah. Everyone thinks of Micah and Trayvon. That's it. Like, the kids are here, and that's a hard pill to kind of swallow sometimes.
It's a young man's game.
But if that gives him the spur to train and to rise above it again, that's all the better for our defense. So, If he was the number one defensive lineman, maybe he would coast. But he's got something to prove this year. He's, especially he's re-signed this contract extension. It's all guaranteed and what have you. There are people questioning whether we should have done it, and that's obviously adding to the fire as well. So I think we will see a rejuvenated DeMarcus Lawrence this year. So
yeah. Yeah, I mean the weight reduction is certainly something to take into account, because what I like with DeMarcus Lawrence is that when he's on the field, he is always he demands people to pay attention to him because he is disruptive. And when you think about it, he is kind of a feel-good story because he was almost gone off the roster. He was like literally right there at the very edge of like them going, yeah, okay, we're ready to give up on him now. And then all of a sudden he has that 2017 season, and then it's like, oh, right, okay, yeah, no, we'll hang about with him. And then obviously this year, then people talk about the contract that he took, so it shows some level of like leadership qualities to do what he did. I mean, he doesn't care; he's getting paid, but it's still good for the team. Like I know you were saying it, RJ, as well, but I don't know. I do think the team is better with him than without, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I like and admire about him is he's kind of the first player to sort of not work with I know you mentioned the team friendly deal, but I mean he got his bag. And I love that. He's kind of the first player to sort of teach the Joneses a lesson about waiting and he played the game the right way against him and he won financially because of it. And so it's crazy how fast, that time kind of flies. But yeah, I mean, if they had let him walk or gotten rid of him, I mean, we're all, I think, a little down on this team. It would be nothing but dark clouds. I mean, it would be tough. It'd be tough to believe in this group if they had lost him on top of everything else.
Yeah. But I'll ask.
Can you imagine losing Randy Gregory and DeMarcus Lawrence in the same offseason?
I would have an absolute meltdown if that was like I'm bald enough. I don't want to be any more bolder.
You've been bringing Dontari Poe back.
Don't even start me. Do you really want to go there, mate? Really?
But here we go then, guys. What do you foresee? I know it's difficult to say at this stage, but what's your projections for DeMarcus Lawrence? I actually think, given the little off-season, that back and forth he's had with Micah Parsons, I can see a little bit, maybe an increase in sacks for sure. But I think people are going to be quite interested in the sort of the tackles for losses are going to go up. That's how I see DeMarcus Lawrence coming out this year, and people are going to be like, "Wow!" But what about you guys? What's your projections for DeMarcus Lawrence this year?
I think you're going to be close to double-digit sacks again this year. I think 9, 10, 11, that sort of thing, going up against and going with Micah as well. They can't just focus. Defenses or offenses can't just switch to Micah this year. They've got to still worry about DeMarcus Lawrence as well, and then that helps everybody else step up as well. So I think your two focus will be DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons from his varied positions.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Great.
I would say probably a usual year in the run game. I'm going to be a little bit cynical and say probably not a huge rise in the sack count. I mean, regular listeners to the show will know that I've always demanded more sacks from Lawrence. But do you know what? If he draws the double team to let Parsons do his thing, fair enough. They've got to take out somebody, and if they choose to take out DeMarcus Lawrence, then you've got Micah Parsons to go and wreak havoc. It would have been nice to have Randy Gregory as well in the rotation, but you've got to move on from that. I get the chat about Fowler. Hopefully he finds an upward year if he's back in a system where he's loved and obviously Dan Quinn can get the best out of players. So if he can come into the rotation, that might help Lawrence a little bit. But I'm going to say just you as per for the run and maybe a slight increase in sacks, hopefully.
Okay.
But the one thing I really do want is a 16-game season. That's
that would
all
be helpful.
we're really looking for.
Because I mean, you mentioned it. Parsons certainly helps Tank a lot. But what about you, RJ? What sort of projection you got for him?
I think, I mean, if he doesn't statistically improve, that would be a really, really, really troubling thing, given the number of games we played last year. So I mean, I think we'll feel better in that sense. I think, I mean, just off like feel and vibe, I think he'll feel like a legitimate contributor to the defense. But he's, to kind of stick with the aging thing, he's the Jason Witten to Micah and Diggs's Dak and Zeke, right? Like he's the older guy, with the injection of youth. And so, Witten was fine, the years he played, in this offense, but, he was clearly not a priority. He had, important moments, and I think we'll see those from DeMarcus Lawrence. But I think the days of him being like the motor are well in the past.
All right. Paul, give me your projection.
I'm going to say it's going to be falling short of double digits. I'm going to say roughly between the 7 or 8 mark. But tackles for loss, I tend to agree that I think the production in that's definitely increased, especially when it comes to like for the run game and that. Like we need to you need to think of it as well, especially if he's moving into the not so much being like rushing on the edge, like but moving back inside, like hitting into the B gap.
Yeah,
like. You could be up against the guard. You could be like hitting in that. Like he could be causing more disruptive force in the inside rather than just the outside. So who knows? And also not just that, you've got your defensive tackles there to hopefully step up as well. So you're kind of hoping that everyone does their job and it just opens all the doors for everybody. And this was just one of the comments was just made up by Anthony Walden. So like you said, like faces a lot of double team and triple Ds, but he needs to have a place to increase their production in the D line, which is a fair enough statement. They can do that. You are going to see more numbers if that's the case, but D-Law can only do so much if he's being a primary focus by offensive linemen. So so I do think it kind of it's like that type of yin and yang. It's like you need other guys to step up to get those numbers. So
and that's where he comes into his own is by bringing everybody else up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be a very DeMarcus Lawrence type situation that will happen where people are going to be like, oh, he hasn't had a sack in 3 games or 4 games. And then all of a sudden there'll be like that really close game or like the Thanksgiving game. And all of a sudden Tank makes like that 4th quarter sack that helps to finish out the game. And then everyone's back on the DeMarcus Lawrence train then, That's the type of situation it has with it,
People need to remember it's like if they're not running the ball or in the direction of DeMarcus Lawrence, then he's doing his job essentially. They don't want to go anywhere near him. As goes for Micah Parsons, they want to get the direction of the ball in the complete different direction of those players. So
you can't be understated. That's one part. All right, next guy, and it's crazy when you think about this. Doris Armstrong, we spoke about him. We actually spoke about him on the Position Breakdown series last time with you, RJ, talking about how he always turns up at camp and you think, oh, here we go. And he fires through it, and then the season he fizzles and disappears into nothingness. The bit that I find crazy, he's only 25 years old. He feels like he's been at the Cowboys for like a decade.
Yeah, I mean, we don't, I think, talk enough about that 2018 class and how like we talk about other classes a lot, but I mean, Leighton has been fine, and obviously, I mean, you're an all-pro at any point. I mean, you deserve, a lot of kudos. Connor Williams gets hated on, but was a really serviceable starter. Michael Gallup, Dalton Schultz, Cedric Wilson, and Doris Armstrong. And so, I mean, you're right, Mike. The hype in training camp generally comes from Jerry Jones for whatever reason. That has like been his dude.
They don't want to give up on him at all.
But like last year, none of us wanted to give up on him. He had the crazy preseason, and we were all in on it. And then he got hurt, and it was devastating. I just don't know. I mean, I I would love to be wrong there, but I mean, I think he's a fine player. But I'm not comfortable putting more responsibility on him at this point in his career.
Yeah, and I going through the stats because it like literally is when you look at it, when you go through his stats and you look at the snap count that's important, that he has his most productive games when he hovers around the 30 snap mark. So when he's around that, once he gets into the 40s, it tends to just start to slip. But when you look at those games, so when you say that, you're like, well, that's rotational. And you're really going to be asking him to play more of a solidified role. You know, he's more of a starter role. Because at the moment, the talk over in Dallas, and I don't know if this is the case, what you're hearing, RJ, is that the race at the moment for defensive end 2, if you like, is between Fowler and Armstrong. And when you look, you've got one that's struggling, who really hasn't hit his draft height. Well, he did, but then he came off with a few injuries. And you got another guy who's more of a rotational piece. And I mean, they believe in him, like you say, RJ. They paid him 3.3 mil on the cap this year, 7 next year, but they can get out of that fairly easy. So, I mean, they do believe in him, that's for sure. But I don't know if I want my heart broken again, where I hype him up and I tell everybody he's going to be going for it. But I will say one thing. He is a friend of UK Cowboys.
Yeah.
So is Stephen Jones. Yeah.
We're only saying that he's a friend of the show because he reposted one of our things on his Instagram. Yeah. Now he's a friend of ours. He knows of us, you know.
You guys have a great Instagram. If anybody doesn't follow UK Cowboys on Instagram, I believe they have a look inside of Lauren's house is what's next. Lauren's going to take us on a tour and show us every single room, was what I was told. But, I mean, you know, you're right. Like, I mean, he will disappoint. Like, you know, he will invariably disappoint. I would love to be wrong about Donny Fowler. I would love for him to come in and because they pulled off Robert Quinn and that was a great 1-year rental. I would love to eat some crow there. I think that's more likely than Dorn's taking the leap. But I still don't think it's incredibly likely personally.
Yeah. Anyone got a projection for Doris Armstrong before we move to Donny Fowler? I let you guys take the floor. What do you feel Dorrance is going to be doing this year?
Well, you like a stat, Mac? Just checked on NFL.com.
Yes.
Barring the 20, I mean, I can't believe we're talking about him whether he starts or not. But in the past 4 seasons, according to NFL.com, he's only missed 4 games. A start is another thing, but it's
okay.
2021 14, 2020 16, 2019 15, 2018 15. So, like you guys are saying, they clearly believe in him. It's just getting them to take that final step. And I think the second year in that contract is key because they can get out of it, but they have given him $7 million. So if he comes out and balls, then that's a decent wage for the second year. But like you say, they can get out of it, so they clearly have reservations about it. But wouldn't it be nice if he came in and did really well? Like he finally got that potential that we've been hoping for, because we could certainly do with something on the other side of Lawrence.
Yeah, I mean, what have you got, Lorne, in terms of projection? Because don't forget, he had his best season last season in terms of sacks. Had 6 sacks. He still has yet. Oh no, he does register 1 forced fumble in 2019. But what do you think? What's your projection for him?
I think we're probably looking at similar. I think we're looking at probably 6-7 sacks this season. You know, his playing stats in terms of the percentage he's been playing on defense has been increasing year on year. It was 44% defensive snaps last season, and obviously you saw his numbers come up. It is difficult when you're only the first couple of years he was only playing 26%, 23%. You know, that is difficult to come in and make a statement there, especially when you're coming in and spelling somebody like Randy Gregory. If you don't make anything in those one or two plays that you get on for in a series or whatever, you're not. They're going to keep Randy Gregory or whoever was in front of him on the field much longer. Obviously, he does have a sponsor on the team. He's got the owner in his camp. We've always said Jerry treats him like his own child. Yeah. So, yeah, I think we're looking at about six or seven sacks this year, and he can stand up against the run as well. I mean, again, last season it was 3 tackles for loss, 12 QB hits, and even a couple of pass deflections as well. So I think you're probably going to get there or thereabouts again.
All right, Paul.
Guys, clear something up for me. I've just gone deeper into his stats. Did he miss 5 games last year?
Yeah, he
did he pick up an injury 3 through 6?
Week 2, and then he came back in week 8.
Right, well, scratch what I've clearly not gone into the stats deep enough, but yeah, the up year certainly remains the golden ticket that we all cheer for.
Yeah. But final thoughts on Doris Armstrong, Paul?
I totally agree with RJ saying there. Like, I'm kind of in that feeling where waiting for this big impact that he's supposed to bring, and it's just not happened yet. And I'm just gonna sit and twiddle my thumbs and hope I'm proven wrong, pretty much. Like, because I'm just kind of you ever seen that meme where it's a wee guy with a stick is like, do something?
Yeah.
That's what I feel like what Doris Armstrong's is to me right now. I'm like, go do something. So I'm still waiting for that this whole whatever. So yeah. But I've got nothing really much else to say on Doris, to be honest.
All right, then. Let's move to Donny Fowler then, because I wrote a little piece this week. I don't know if you've seen it, RJ, about how Donny Fowler's an upgrade from Randy Gregory, and it very much divided Cowboys Nation on social media. Got a few names hurled as well, but I like them. Send them my way. I enjoy it. That's my tackling fuel.
Sorry, calm down, Bobby Bushy.
It's my tackling fuel. Now, I mean, when you look at Donny Fowler, one of the comments I made, we said before, is that he literally is a guy that really didn't need 3 years in college to develop. I mean, he literally could have come and joined the NFL in his freshman year. Picks up some injuries with Saxonville that he was with at the time. Went to wasn't Atlanta then, was it? Was
Rams then Atlanta.
Yeah, then Atlanta. RJ, am I right to say though he very briefly spent time with Dan Quinn in the time he transitioned with Dan Quinn in Atlanta?
Yeah, teeny little bit of crossover, and then Dan Quinn got fired, obviously. But I mean, obviously, everybody's made a big deal about their relationship back at the University of Florida.
Yes.
And I mean, look, I feel bad because like it sounds like everything I say is, or feel like everything I say is negative. But I think Paul, and for real this time, Paul embodied kind of my thought. Like everything the Cowboys have planned or want to happen is sound, right? Like, oh, it'd be awesome if Donny Fowler found the fountain of youth, if Dan Quinn, really found this dude that, he had a relationship with before. But all of these things happening are so unlikely. I mean, they're possible. They exist in the world of all possibilities, but, they've bought a lot of lottery tickets, and I don't know that they cash in on them. And that's my hesitation and my fear. And I think we've gone so far with hope or whatever you want to call it that, we were so sick of letting Rod Marinelli dictate the defense, right? Like, why is Rod Marinelli getting all the leeway, blah, blah, like this is so dumb, only to completely and totally hand the reins to Dan Quinn right afterwards, right? Like now we implicitly trust Dan Quinn for whatever. Dan Quinn made, Donny Fowler work at Florida, a decade ago. So it's supposed to happen again here in the NFL. It's just, I think I would love for Dan Quinn to just be this like incredible defensive mind again, but I think that, there's some regression coming, and I think the rosy view of Dan Quinn is going to be a little bit tarnished over this season, which I would love to be. I would really love to be wrong about that.
Yeah, because he did have an up year, mind you, last year, Fowler. And when you think as well what he was trying to do on that Falcons defense, because if you say he was on the Falcons defense, a lot of people go, yeah, that wasn't a very good defense. But
bear in mind though, Mike, when it comes to Fowler, like even though he only played 14, but he only started 6 games.
Yeah, he was viewed very good. In fact, if you look at his snap count on year by year, last season was his least. He was just over 500 snaps on the season, which is the lowest in his career. And he spent 2 of those years on lower amount of games because he was dealing with injuries.
Not to mention as well, he actually has more statistics than the year before when he had more snaps.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry, lesser snaps. Sorry.
Yeah. He comes away with 3 forced fumbles, and I'm doing this off memory because I'm that sad. Comes off with 3 forced fumbles, and I don't know about the sacks, but I know the
tackles, 4.5. 4.5.
But the tackles were fairly decent for the sort of role he was playing.
Yeah, I mean, you had 36 combined tackles. 21 of those were solos, 15 assists, 4.5 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles.
Yeah. So, I mean, he has done for, he's trying to get back up to what he was before, but I don't think he's ever going to get there. I think, like, what I do find crazy, we were talking about Doris Armstrong being with the Cowboys for the last 5 years. Fowler's been in the league for 8 years.
Yeah. I still remember that day when he got drafted. It's crazy.
He was young getting drafted.
Yeah. And unfortunately for him, I mean, he was drafted 3rd overall pick. And in that first mini camp, he went down, what was it, an Achilles, I think it was as well. So similar to what we're seeing with David Ajabo, that, and obviously the Ravens are worried about what they're going to get him coming back from. It takes away a little bit of speed. Takes something out of your game. The year that he was with the Rams obviously was his best year. Then goes off, plays 5 games with Dan Quinn, and then everything, Dan Quinn gets released, and everything was in fluid motion then for the remainder of his career with the Falcons. Can Quinn reignite him? If anybody's going to do it, I think Dan Quinn is.
Well, I mean, you've started on what I was going to ask everybody. Is that Dan Quinn? Obviously, we know he's the defensive mastermind. He's worked with him before. But obviously, we have seen this pattern already. So, what do you project Fowler's going to come away with working with Dan Quinn? Is Dan Quinn going to get certainly a better Fowler than we've seen in the past, or are we seeing a pattern with the Keanu Neal situation that we got as well with Atlanta?
I think it's similar to Keanu Neal.
You think so?
I think it's Henry Melton with Rod Marinelli. That we were so pumped about that, and it was like, it just so rarely works. I mean, like I've said, I think it's dumb that people thought that Curtis Samuel was going to be amazing in Washington just because Ron Rivera brought him over. And this is a similar sort of thing. Like I don't think Dante Fowler will be awful. I just don't think he'll be a difference maker. I mean, and that's okay.
Yeah. And when I talked about what we wrote about, I said very explicitly at the end, I don't think he's going to be the first round talent or this player that's going to further ignite the defense. But I do think he's an upgrade to Gregory. I don't know what you think of that, RJ.
I would not agree that he's an upgrade from Randy Gregory. I do think we have over-evaluated Randy a bit, but I do think that he is a better player today than Dante Fowler. Okay.
Yeah, I like it. That's what some other people said to me in the media. I was like, nah, I'm going against the grain. I don't care what you're saying. But all right, then. What about the next guy then? Taro Basham. 28 years of age. Obviously, he's on that 2-year contract. This year, on the cap, he's $3 million. So about the same as Dante Fowler as well. I mean, he was one of the steadier ships last year on the defense. But when you look at snap count, he was there for every game. When we needed him most, when DeMarcus Lawrence went down, we needed something to try and right the defense on that side of the line as a bookend. What do you guys think of Taro Basham? Do you think he's going to have a major role here, or is he a rotational piece? Do we think we're going to see a tick up from last year? What's everyone's feelings on him?
I definitely think he's going to be having that similar role, being that rotational guy. But whenever he will be like the main guy if someone goes down, essentially, because he has been very serviceable. Wherever you put him as a 5 or put him, but kind of like depending on the left hand side or right hand side, like he's very serviceable. We can play at both sides at the end position.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously the primary part of his career with the Jets as well, he was used as a sort of stand-up linebacker almost as well in a lot of situations as well. You got that sort of position flex, so not only can he play a little bit of the interior line, he can also bounce out to linebacker as well if you want to do some sort of hybrid 3-4 defense, or at least bring one of your defensive linemen up in a 2-point stance. Creates a little bit of mystery for the offense as well.
He's had the same stats roughly for the past couple of years, so I think that's pretty much who he's going to be. 3.5 sacks, 17 solo tackles. That's pretty much what you're going to get from Basham. The rotation.
Yeah, 35 pressures throughout the season. Yeah. What do you reckon, RJ? Or are you expecting some more?
Yeah, I think, that's the right, box to put him in. I think he and Donny Fowler will have similar lines of production. I mean, you've got to have your rotational guys, and I mean, you could have worse players, to serve those roles than those two, and so I think they're doing all right there.
Yeah, all right. Moving on to the next guy then is last year's rookie, and then we'll move to this year's rookies. Chauncey Goldstein. Now, this is actually Jamie's guy. He absolutely loves Chauncey Goldstein.
And me.
Yeah, you do as well, of course, yeah. Now, one of the things we spoke about in the off-season before we started doing the position breakdown series was we talking about how this team roster talent-wise isn't as good as last year, with the exception of players that could very much develop over the next year. Chauncey Goldstein, for me, is one of those guys where if he develops enough, this roster could be back on his way to what it was last season in that solid, sort of roster depth. Because, I mean, for a rookie, when you look at it, and he didn't start really until playing significant snaps till week 3, and then it is sort of dipped off towards the end of the season. But he's still come away with 2 sacks. Still managed to get that in. 16 tackles and 23 pressures. For a rookie, really, he was trying to just do the best that he can in that first year in the way that they were utilizing him. I don't think he did particularly bad. I don't know what you think, RJ.
I mean, I think he has a lot of potential. And I think he's somebody who, unlike everybody else, has had Dan Quinn for 100% of his career. And so, outside of Micah Parsons, obviously. I think that matters. I mean, I think he's like your true lottery ticket. I mean, if there's somebody, we kind of saw that little jump from Doris Armstrong. That was notable at the time. I think you could kind of see that from Chauncey here from year 1 to year 2.
Yeah. What's everyone's expectations like? Oh, I tell you what, rather than expectations, what does Chauncey you all feel needs to work on the most in terms of development to be that next level player?
Well, I think one of the things, obviously, he's gained about 20 kilos of
size
mass.
And strength. Yeah.
So the size and strength, as long as he hasn't, as a result, he hasn't lost anything on any of his speed, then, that has potential for getting him to break in this year a bit more. Again, I hate to say it, but I mean, I think I see him more as the sort of Tyron Crawford, you know, the ability, but we're not we're not asking him to gain weight to be a tackle and then play end this year. I think we're going to have him at a set weight, and you know that weight's going to be comparable for both interior and the edge as well. So I see him being a rotational piece. I mean, we talked about Basham there, but I mean, Basham's maybe if Goldstein makes a step up, I think maybe Basham gets pushed down a bit, maybe even gets pushed off the roster even. So, you know, this is obviously we're not tied to Basham. So, if we as long as these guys don't have a sophomore slump, then you know the potential's there that you know you don't need guys like Basham. And again, perhaps there's trade value there for Basham. So, but do you want to put all your eggs in somebody who may start the season well and then have this sort of slump that you know is well documented in a lot of players?
Yeah. I think he's one of those players that we really need to get them to develop, because that's the roster needs these players. Certainly last year's class to start coming up. You know, we spoke about Neville Gallimore as well being one of those players last year that we really need them to get up to that pace now to get back to the level of talent this roster had last year. But let's move on to the last two rookies, and we can talk about these ones. Paul's shaking his head already because he knows we're going to talk about Sam Williams. Now, we've already done an in-depth look at him after the draft where we went quite deep. So it's really just going over with Sam Williams, what we project from him, what he needs to work on the most. Spoke to some guys over in Dallas Cowboys, and I said to one of the guys, I was like, what does Sam Williams you feel need to work on the most? And the best comment I had back was just literally everything. He's a rookie. I don't know what you think about that, RJ.
I think that Sam is the benefit of a lot of people needing something to believe in and buy into, right? And I think he could totally be awesome. And I think that Sam is kind of the embodiment of the confidence that people have placed in Dan Quinn. And so there's all the confidence of, you know, Quinn loved him in the lead up to the draft process. Quinn wanted his guy. Quinn got him. He looks and talks and sounds like Micah Parsons. So it's really easy to kind of convince yourself that like that is happening again. And it might. But Micah was this like unicorn of unicorns. And so I certainly think that Sam Williams can develop into a really, really fine player, but it is so difficult to come in right away and make an impact. And I think he'll be a really good player for the Cowboys, but that doesn't necessarily, you know, you can be a really good player without being like a star pass rusher. And so he just needs time in the NFL, and you only get time with time passing.
Yeah. Like I always say, defensive line guys, you've got to give them that 3-year like sort of gestation period, if you like, to get up to speed. Like certainly offensive linemen, you know, not everyone can be Zach Martin and just hit the ground running. You know, 3 years is what I always say with defense and offensive linemen. So it's going to have to be time tells with him. What about the rest of you guys? I mean, one thing I do like, Paul, right? And I know we talked about the bend with him. One thing I do like, though, is I go back and watch tape of him when he plays, rather than trying to get around the outside of the guys, coming inside against the offensive line. He can be quite nifty. He can get around them. He can shift through them.
I just said, well, I'm not going to use the competition as an example. Well, you know what? I am going to use the competition, like, because they don't expect a guy like Sam Williams to move that way inside as often, and I will give Sam Williams credit. He knows how to bull rush. He knows how to do that. He knows how to force the guy back. He's got all the strength and the straight line speed, but when it comes to actually setting off the edge and trying to turn around to get back round to the quarterback, that's for me on the slow side of things. And also like
run defense.
Well, no. What I was trying to say was, it's like, yeah, he can bull rush, but he still remains so upright. all the time.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that to me is a bit will affect him with his bend. Like if he can get himself lower, he can
And
actually
gaining leverage.
gaining leverage.
Yeah,
So there's all those wee characteristics he still needs to improve on. And this is why I've been so critical of him. It's like I didn't think me personally, I still didn't think he was worth the second round grade, personally. But if you were to swap like Tolbert and Williams, it kind of works out for itself. So that it cancels itself out. It cancels itself out. So, yeah, I mean, I'm like I can't remember who it was we were just kind of talking about earlier, like regards to I like to be humbled, but this is one of the guys I would personally like to eat humble pie. Like I like to be proven wrong, regardless. But I completely agree what you're saying. Like in terms of, I don't think he's going to make an impact this year, but maybe next year or the year after, that's when you would start to see him come into his element. There is a reason why Dan Quinn obviously really scouted him, but looking at the tape, there clearly is he has a lot still to improve on, but he is under the good tutorage of Dan Quinn and obviously Adam Dudley. So I'm confident he will become well, but it's just a matter of time and when. Well,
I just think he needs to get a bit of strength behind him because he is a pure speed rusher.
Yeah.
No, I would say his strength is actually a good thing, to be honest.
No, like his core strength, because he doesn't hold up on the run, and you can't have a guy who's not very good against the run as your permanent defensive end on the other side.
But again, that's maybe as a result of being too high coming out of his stance and everything like that.
Yeah.
The one, and I mean, Paul, obviously, when Paul put that critique up back in pre-draft, obviously there was a lot of people who were ready to jump on Paul for that. But I would back Paul up with that. What we got from, I think it was Marcus being on the draft shows with us, was the sort of insider information that basically he hasn't had the coaching. He's basically been put on the field and said, see ball, get ball. You know, almost, again, we've been joking about Bobby Boucher, you know, it is tackling field, go get the ball, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
He never had the proper coaching on how to play defensive end, and he managed to put up those sort of stats last year in college. Now, he is going to get his ass coached by Dan Quinn this year. Whether you believe Dan Quinn is some sort of defensive messiah, who knows? But you know, one thing he is going to get coached by Dan Quinn and Aidan Durdy this year, and we should see improvement this year. And then I think next year he will probably be ready to take the league. But I think we'll get good rotation out of him this season.
Yeah, and just before I move on to Graham on Sam Williams, we are going to let RJ go. He's got another engagement, so we're going to let him disappear, and they're not going to understand what he's saying because he's been on this show so much. He's picking up an English accent now. Last time he got the knighthood. The time before that, he got a dual passport. Now he's getting the accent.
Next time we start calling you Jamie next, RJ.
Yeah, I'm going to look for some real estate in the greater UK area. So if you guys can help me out with the price conversions and the Celsius stuff, that'd be great. So
and the weight thing as well.
That's right. Y'all have a great day. I love you all, but I love Mike the most, just a little bit more because he mentioned the Aggies. That's why. So.
That's right. It's all about the Aggies. Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that, and Fisher can give Saban a big one.
Later, guys.
Later, boss.
But sorry, continue on, Gray, with Sam Williams. What do you think he needs to develop on, and where do you think he's going to go this season? I just see him at the moment at this stage. The two-headed race for the other side to play on the other side from Tank is either going to be Fowler or Armstrong. That's really where it is. I know a lot of people want it to be Sam Williams. It's not going to be. He can't hold up. He can't hold up against the run. You can't have a guy who's not that good against the run as your permanent starter. Because what are they going to do? They're just going to keep running at you on that side.
Like I can't think of the tackles, the opposing tackles we're going to play against, the offensive tackles. they're like, if you were to put him straight in week 1 against, I don't know, like your Eric Fishers or whoever, they're going to teach him a lesson. Like they're going to expose him very quickly, not until someone learns through that, through obviously for training camp, but on that more development structure through after year 1, after year 2. It's best just to get him in, like get him some snaps to get some experience, but I wouldn't throw him into the wolves.
I would love it. I would love it to be a 3-way competition, but I don't think it's going to be like you were saying, Mike. I think it's going to be Fowler or Armstrong. For cap purposes, I hope it's Armstrong because we've only got Fowler for 1 year. Wouldn't it be just like the Cowboys that Fowler comes in, has 10 sacks, and goes and signs for somebody else?
Yeah, the Robert Quinn experience.
No, that's like that's like everything that happens to the Cowboys every year. When someone does good in a 1-year contract, they bugger off
and continue where they left off
every time.
But since we took Williams, I've been trying to get Paul know the exact video that I'm talking about. I've been trying to get that video out of my head where the back is so straight, it's so rigid, he's upright, and like Paul's saying, any left tackle in the league that's worth their salt is going to get the hands on, jack him up, and he's going to be a foot in the air and not being able to do anything with the power. So, like you guys are saying, the coaching's got to be there. Year 2, year 3 is when we see Sam Williams, I think.
Year 3 it's all about year 3.
Yeah, when you're going up against NFL tackles with like 4, 5, 6 years of experience
and weight room and
the proper
nutrition.
development of an offensive tackle in the league against a raw, and I mean very raw, Sam Williams. There's going to be one winner. Really, in my personal opinion, that would be the tackles. Just they would know every trend in the book, and they see him.
And it's the mental side too.
Exactly. So,
I mean, just imagine Williams gets a couple of reps with the ones, and he comes up against Tyron Smith. That's going to be a long day. That's going to be a long practice session. So,
I mean,
hopefully he does get stuff with the ones.
Yeah, and some of the hype as well. A lot of people have been hyping because he's been doing well in practice. But bear in mind who he's been up in practice against. He's been up against other rookies. So basically he was doing what he was doing in college. And in college, he was nearly the sack leader practically. So you think he can do it.
I mean, with this all being said, like, I'm sure, like, this is a question for every single one of us, right? Don't we all would love to eat humble pie?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
You never want to play it to play bad. Cowboys play. We're not saying we hope he plays bad, so we're proven right.
No. We want to be proven wrong. We want to say, okay, you know what? Like, all of our doubts have been answered. You know what? Fair play to you, and we'll give you all the praise and recognition that this player deserves. So, and this is what we're kind of like. We do have our doubts, but we would love to be proven wrong. Doesn't matter if it's Sam Williams or Doris Armstrong having this big, massive year. Like, it could be anybody.
Yeah,
so
I mean, we could all sit here and say they're all going to get 10 sacks each, but it's not true.
It's unrealistic.
It's worthless. It's worthless content. You've got to kind of take the Cowboys' shaded glasses off for a second and try and not be down on them, but be realistic on them.
It's like we've got this iron curtain over. Maybe that's not the right term to use, but
it's all right. Go with it. You've gone for that analogy.
Yeah, so you've got this iron curtain that protects you from the reality of what's going on.
Yeah.
That's like,
but again, going back to a comment that we made before, that this team could very much get back to greatness if certain players lower down in the roster develop, because we can't see how they're developing. The coaches can, we can't. If these players do develop in the way that they should or we expect, this team could be really great. And Goldstein being one of them, Sam Williams being another.
Yeah. And I mean, as Graham says, I mean, obviously, if he is going up against the likes of Tyron Smith in training camp, that coupled with Dan Quinn's coaching, that's going to help him as well when it comes to playing other teams. What you'll see is when we have the intra-squad scrimmage against the Chargers and he's going up against Storm Norton, he'll probably light up Storm Norton and we'll be saying, oh yeah, this is great. But I mean, it's what you're seeing against guys like Tyron Smith is whether if he's improving there, that's where you want to be seeing that. But I mean, that's going to help especially. I mean, obviously, Tyron Smith when he came into the league, DeMarcus Ware was on his way out, but DeMarcus Ware spent that time with him. If Tyron Smith takes that same role on and spends a little bit of time after hours or whatever and going through things like that, that helps with the progression as well. Because the coaches can only teach so much.
Yeah.
Opposition players will give you little hints as well and help you with that as well. So I can see him getting better, but I think this year, anything we get out of him this year is a bonus, and it's next year and the year after we'll be looking at the full strength coming out of him.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, let's look at the last guy then. That's the undrafted free agent Big Cat, Big Cat Bryant. I went and looked at this player. We were speaking off air that he was one guy that popped up on my radar a couple of years ago when I believe he was playing at Auburn at the time rather than UCF, and just because of the name, and I was like, "There's a guy. What is that? That's his Christian name?" Turns out not, but I mean, he's a decent guy. He's obviously still on this UDFA rookie contract. Interesting type player. The only thing I will say, and me and Graham have spoken about this before, is that he is disruptive. He's in the backfield causing havoc. But here's my issue, and it's in college. In his entire collegiate career, he's come away with only 10 sacks. Yeah, and me and you have spoken about this before, Gray. If you can't get the numbers in college, what makes you think you're going to come into the NFL against top team, bigger talent, bigger guys, and suddenly be this guy who's going to do it? I like what he does, but the stats aren't there. That's the trouble I have with him.
I mean, like you say, Mike, the problem is the step up, because all of a sudden you're going from average to above average players in college to the 32 best centers in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first step. I mean, even if he's the first guy off the bus, that only goes so far.
Yeah, but he's not even that big either. He's not a big guy, you know.
Personally, I think he'll definitely be more help with the special teams as well. That always needs to play into the equation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, he could find a way on the team. That's the thing. When you watch the tape, and you're watching it, and like especially at UCF, you go back and watch the tape. He's always in the backfield. He's back there. And like people are having trouble with him, and you can see running backs are having to go over there and max protect. So he's a nuisance.
I think, to be honest, this year you're probably going to end up seeing him hitting the practice squad this year.
I think that's the way it's going.
I think last week, obviously, when we were talking defensive tackles, we were saying 5 defensive tackles. I reckon you're probably talking 5 defensive ends this year as well. So 10 defensive linemen in total. Most of them have sort of position flex, so that you can also, as we say, we talked about the sort of the all guns to the wall defensive line when you're on pass rush as well, where you can kick DeMarcus Lawrence inside, and bring in every single end that you need. I can't, unless he absolutely lights up camp, and then, but again, we've talked about everybody that's above him. Which one of these guys goes down or gets cut for him, and again you're putting a hell of a lot of pressure on if you're expecting him to suddenly produce that in a regular season as well. So
Yeah, and with the type of size that he is as well. Because I always worry, and it's really weird because you look at it and you think, how is he absorbing all of this contact? Because he doesn't look natural, but he is a nuisance of a player. He's always hovering around there. But the number one thing I always go down to is you just go, what's his sack total? I think he's on like 9 sacks in 4 years, and you're just like, yeah. It's less than 2 sacks a year, and that's at college level, you know.
Yeah.
The guy they want to go is Sam Williams. It's not the big cat, and I think that's going to be telling. So you've got the competition from Fowler and Armstrong. You've got the developmental player and Williams. You've got Goldstein from last year.
Mm-hmm.
Like Lawrence said, it's difficult to find a jersey for him.
Yeah. It's true. Yeah. I'm with Lorna. I think he goes to practice squad because there is something there. He just needs to put some more meat on the bone and get, because he is explosive. That's what's weird. Coming off the ball, he's maybe one of the fastest players next to Tristan Hill. He's like, wow. I mean, like, you go and watch it. His snap anticipation and coming off the ball is just like he's fire. It's just a blur. But then it just
his get off from the stance. Yeah.
Yeah. He knows how to time it. He times it really, really well. And then getting it, but then it's just like his finishing plays. He just doesn't seem it fizzles quite quickly, fizzles into nothingness. But there we go, guys. That's the defensive ends on the Cowboys roster. I was looking forward to doing that one. Linebacker should be fun as well, mind. But cornerbacks are the one we're going to be doing. But that means, guys, there's only 3 more shows for season 3, and then we're on to season 4. Starting off on the 21st is our first show, and it'll be obviously a camp preview. And then we're into Oxnard, so this is exciting. Who wants to do this bit? And be careful with the words you choose because YouTube, for some reason, doesn't like us saying too much on this. Anyone want to go for it? Anyone?
Go on. If you're going to cross to a game this year, check out cowboysexperience.com for the ultimate meet and greets, tailgate, and game day packages. Get to meet current and former players, cheerleaders, and if you're going to book through them, use the UK Cowboys discount code, and you'll get
free stuff.
Free stuff. Who are you going to watch off this list, Paul, this week? Choose one. Anyone.
Sorry, what?
You're going to pick one show off this list this week to watch. What's it going to be? Pick anyone.
SB Nation blogging the boys.
How did I guess? One I wasn't going to shout out to, though, of course, is Cowboys Fans Only. J-Tuck is absolutely loving that blue crisp water at the moment. Have you seen his pictures?
Yeah,
amazing. Looks amazing. Yeah, superb.
No, he was in Dubai. He's now in what? The Maldives?
Yeah, the Maldives.
Oh,
yeah.
Man.
Yeah,
Loving it. Looks amazing.
And a shout out as well, by the way, to Bluff City. We'll try and get him back.
Marcus checking in.
Yeah, and a quick one on the package deal. There was an update that came out yesterday. Make sure to go check it out. There's already something new being added. So basically, you take a family, friend, or wife, partner, boyfriend, whoever it's going to be. Make sure to let us know because you will get a reduction in the price per head. That's right. Deals are coming in already on that bad boy. And look at Graham. He's so ready for it, look. He's ready. I'm
so red after the sunburn. That's what I'm red for.
Yeah. A certain Mrs. Wilson told me you've already got your suitcase packed for Texas next year.
We'll let the bank balance recover first.
Yeah, there is that. But that is it for this week, guys. We will be back next Thursday talking linebacker, which should be a really fun show. That's going to be very interesting to look at with the characters on that end. But that is it for us. Have a great weekend. These guys are going to finish off the show. And we'll see you then. Stay safe, folks.
Okay, have a good week, guys, and we'll catch you next week.
Catch you guys later. Have a good one. Go Cowboys.
Not long to go.
Not long to go, baby.